How do you plan in an environment of constant change? It's time to put the pro in your agile and hybrid skills with Agile Hybrid Project Pro, equipping you with the skills you need to lead any project in any environment. Stay relevant, get pro. Agile Hybrid Project Pro.
Hi everyone, my name is Matt Harrison PMI. Thank you for joining us for our virtual event. Before I turn this over to our speaker, I want to provide some quick tips for you to have a better experience in our virtual environment. Please use Chrome or Firefox and turn off your VPN while viewing these sessions. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see some grey buttons. If you're looking for closed captioning, we have captioning available in 11 languages. Click the CC button and the captioning window will pop up. If you're looking for the session presentation or handout, click the handout button at the bottom of the screen to view and download directly. If at any time throughout the session you have audio or visual problems, we recommend that you refresh your browser to see if this resolves your issue. If not, there is a tech support button for you to communicate directly to our engineers. We also have additional resources like the PDU tracker, speaker bios and more in the top navigation bar. Please post your questions to the chat and our speakers will be answering them after the event on the projectmanagement.com blog. Now, let's turn it over to our speaker and enjoy PMI's Virtual Experience Series event.
Thank you for joining our session on delivering project success by driving adoption with change management. I'm Tim Creasy, ProSci's Chief Innovation Officer. I'm excited to come today and share with you some thoughts, some tips, some tactics that you can use to drive greater impact, greater success on the projects that you support. I want to start off by really just teeing it up with a foundation here that project management prepares the solution for the organization. Change management prepares the organization for the solution. Change management and project management are allies in driving the kinds of changes our organizations need to bring forward to become who we want to be. It is both the technical side and the people side of change that together deliver successful results and outcomes. And that's really the foundation, the framework we're going to build out today. Because there is a gap between requirements and results. There is a gap between the outputs we create from a project and the outcomes we expect to deliver for the organization. There's a gap between designing to specifications and designing to sustained value for the organization. And Darrell Connor, the grandfather of change management, gave us this rich language about the gap between installation and realization of value. We can execute a project really well and check the box on the left-hand side of this slide, but it is the people side of change that help us bridge that gap to truly create the successful outcomes we expect. And that's why change management and project management are such critical partners in driving more successful outcomes. Here's a little bit of the agenda of what we're going to cover today. We're going to begin by unpacking the unified value proposition, which is a way to look at the two sides of change that are going to help us drive more effective outcomes and results. Then we're going to explore how we can de-risk and de-chance the people side of change. It's the often overlooked, sometimes neglected, but critical component of driving results and outcomes. It is the focus of the discipline of change management, and we'll look at how we can de-chance adoption and usage of our solutions. And then we'll conclude by looking at the 4 dimensions of integration, how we can bring change management and project management together based on integration around results, around people, around processes, and around tools. So that's what we're going to unpack today. Robin Sharma tells us change is hard at the beginning, messy in the middle, and gorgeous at the end. And we've all felt that in our own personal experiences of change. What it also helps us do is realize that change happens in phases, a way for us to make sense of, and if we can unpack those moving parts of change, we're in a better position to drive more successful change outcomes. And so the unified value proposition is change on a page. It's a framework, a conceptual container for us to make sense of the moving parts of change so that project managers and change managers can work more effectively together to drive results and outcomes. So we begin in the middle of the unified value proposition with a description of change. Change is about stepping out of a current state through a transition state to arrive at a new future state. Now, in today's world of adaptation and iteration, we know that our projects tend to go through cycles of transitions, cycles of futures. Maybe we're implementing a project where the future state in and of itself has continuous change, like a continuous improvement system. But change requires us to step out of what we know to navigate that messy, challenging transition to ultimately arrive at that desired, aspired to future state. Now, every change begins for a reason. Those reasons can be internal or external. They can be motivated by what's happening today or what we aspire to achieve in the future. But the reason for change is really the spark. It's what caused this project to get initiated in the first place. Now, there's two sides of every change. One of those sides is the technical side, where we design, develop, and deliver a solution that meets the needs or opportunities that are in front of us. And you'll notice, technical doesn't necessarily mean technological. It could be a new value system that we bring to place. It could be a new set of processes we're going to follow. It doesn't have to be technology, although many of our projects today are driven by technology. But the technical side of change is the nuts and bolts of the solution and how we design, develop, and deliver it, given the trade-offs that exist. The other side of the coin is the people side of change. And that's where we ensure that our people engage with, adopt, and use the solution that we've brought to life on the technical side. The change landscape is littered with changes that did an amazing job designing, developing, and delivering a technical solution that nobody picked up and started using. That doesn't create the value the organization expects. It doesn't create the improvement we signed up for. Success requires both sides of that change coin. The technical side and the people side need to be in place if we want to deliver successful outcomes in our organization. Now, the technical side of change is really the domain of project management. It's around managing the cost, the scope, the time, the trade-offs, the quality, the stakeholders, all the moving parts required to develop that technical solution. Change management focuses on that people side of the coin. That's the discipline that helps us understand how we can help our people adopt and use the solutions that we brought forward. So the unified value proposition gives us all of the moving parts that drive towards successful change outcomes. They give us the platform about how we're going to more effectively work with one another. Now, a really important foundational concept here is that organizations don't change, individuals do. And we often think about organizational change at that organizational 30,000-foot level. A new ERP, a new CRM, a new HRIS, a new collaboration platform, maybe a merger or an acquisition, maybe you're supporting a new value system or a cultural initiative. Those are those organizational level moves that we often focus and spend our time on. They have names and titles, and those are the projects that make up the change in our organization. But ultimately, change comes to life one person at a time. It's individuals, Andy, Becky, Charlie, Debbie, Eddie, Franny, Jerry, Harry, Izzy. Individuals stepping out of their own personal current state, through their own personal transition state to get to their own future state that drives true change. And watch what can happen. Take a look at the image. Have you ever seen that happen? People stay stuck in the current state. They don't even step out of how things are done today. And that erodes from the vision of the future state we were signing up to deliver. Did you see what else can happen? People can make it to the future state and then step back into the transition. It's our natural tendency to regress. And notice how the future state we envisioned was complete, and instead we ended up with a Swiss cheese future state because we did not help our people to adopt and use the change effectively. Change happens one person at a time. And Vince Lombardi, the legendary football coach for the Green Bay Packers, said, "The achievements of an organization are the results of the combined effort of each individual." Now, he's talking about an 11-man football team. But that's the reality for our projects and our initiatives, for our teams, for our organization. That the success, the achievements, delivering on the promise of the project is the result of the combined effort of each individual. And so I often get asked about the ROI of change management, as if it's something separate than the ROI of the project itself. Now that we're thinking about the unified value proposition, that the people side and technical sides of change are two sides of the same coin, we realize the ROI of change management is not something separate than the ROI of the project. It's the people-dependent portion of the ROI of the project. It's the portion of the project ROI that depends on people adopting and using the change. It depends on people showing up in a new way. And for some of our projects, maybe a technology hygiene project, there may be no dependency on people changing how they do their jobs. But many of our projects, and especially our most important projects, depend on adoption and usage. This quote comes from Change Management, the People Side of Change, that Jeff Hyatt and I published many years ago. The results and outcomes of workplace changes are intrinsically and inextricably tied to individual employees doing their jobs a new way. Those organizational changes come to life one person at a time, and the results of those projects and initiatives depend on individuals changing how they do their jobs. So I give you two examples here to try to think about this framework. Project 1 is installing motion-activated lights in meeting rooms. How much of the results and outcomes of that project depend on people changing how they do their jobs? Well, not very much, except for the guy who has to code it and set up the system. When I walk in the room, the lights go on. When I walk out the room, the lights go off. There is not a people-dependent portion of that ROI of the project. But look at the project 2 on the right-hand side. We're going to install recycle and compost bins in our office. How much of that project's outcomes depends on adoption and usage? A significant portion, because it all depends on where I end up throwing that aluminum can. So think about your own projects. Think about aspects of the solutions you're working to bring to life in your organization. What portion, how much of the expected ROI depends on people changing how they do their jobs? And that's really this key question. Think about this. Go ahead and pause this if you're watching it asynchronously, or just lean back and think. For a project I'm working on right now, what percent of the overall results and outcomes depends on employee adoption and usage of the change? And I've asked this question to thousands of people during conferences, done real-time word clouds. The numbers are huge. It's 80, 85, 90, 95% of our expected value depends on people changing how they do their jobs. And we often will follow that up with a second question, though. How much are we investing in terms of our time, our energy, our people in actually supporting adoption and usage? And the unfortunate reality is there is a significant disconnect, often a significant disconnect, between the value of the adoption contribution and what we are doing to capture that adoption contribution. We can also talk about the costs and risks when we don't get adoption and usage. Now, this screen is an eye chart. It's meant to be. It's in the handout, so you have access to it. There's over 200 costs and risks identified when we don't get the adoption and usage we expected or needed on our projects. Things like attrition, delayed timelines, loss of productivity, no results, resistance, skepticism, turnover, uncertainty, disruption. These are the costs and risks that projects are facing when they don't drive adoption and usage like they need to. When we don't have the adoption and usage of the solution we expect, we don't achieve what we set out to, and we get plagued by costs and risks we could have avoided had we been thoughtful about how to engage our people during those projects. I'll offer up just a couple of more thoughts around this unified value proposition and how project management and change management come together to deliver successful outcomes in times of change. On the left, you see the notion of ROI. We often talk about ROI as return on investment. This is a little bit different take. We're risk of indifference. There's not just the return on the investment of our energy and time, there's the risk of indifference if we ignore the people side of change. because that people side of change is going to be on the coin no matter what, whether we tend to it or not. But if we are indifferent about how our people are going to experience the change, if we are indifferent about building the commitment and buy-in we need, if we are indifferent about helping people address the resistance and obstacles they're facing, we will suffer the consequences, and they are costly consequences to the project. And on the right-hand side, you see the two most costly letters in the project world, R and E. And what I mean by that is these re-costs that plague our projects when we forget to bring our people to the table until the end. Rework, redesign, redo, rescope, retrain, retreat. These are all re-costs that we are not, unfortunately exposing ourselves when we don't have to, because we leave the people side of change to chance and we leave it to the end. So there's all kinds of costs and risks. There's the Swiss cheese future state, but in the end, it's about driving better results and outcomes. And there's about 6,000 data points now in this data set that shows a correlation between how effectively we apply the discipline of change management, how well we prepare, equip, and support our people through the changes that they are experiencing, and how well we, A, meet objectives on the project. And you see a 6-fold bump if we can go from poor to excellent, and you see a 3-fold bump if we can go from poor to fair in our likelihood of meeting objectives because we're tending to our people and the change journeys they're experiencing. B, you see a correlation between the people side of change and how well we stay on schedule. And C, you see a correlation between change management effectiveness and our ability to stay on or below budget. The better we support our people, the more often we meet objectives on time and on budget, because our people are such a critical component of change success. And that's the unified value proposition, that project management and change management come together to deliver project outcomes together. Calvin Coolidge, the 30th President of the United States, once said, "Those who trust to chance must abide by the results of chance." And as I mentioned, the people side of change will be there no matter what. Adoption and usage is a component of every project, whether we are thinking about it, paying attention to it, and being thoughtful with how we are supporting it. The people side of change will always be there. Are we going to leave those results up to chance, or are we going to step out and manage them? And this is one of my favorite jokes I use in presentations. The old email on Monday, for training on Tuesday, for go live on Wednesday approach to change. We've all been victims of this. Some of us might have been perpetrators of it, but we know what it feels like. It's not the way to prepare our people to succeed when we're asking them to use a new collaboration platform, to use a new HR information system, to use a new customer relationship management system, to work in a new merged organization, or to embrace a new mindset, a new value system in the organization. Emails on Monday, for training on Tuesday, for go live on Wednesday leaves the people side of change to chance. So how might we de-chance adoption of our solutions? That's really what the discipline of change management's about. De-chancing the adoption of the solutions we're putting forward. And I'm going to give you sort of 3 high-level points here. Again, there's an entire discipline called change management built around this. But to begin de-chancing adoption, we want to first define the change impact so that we understand what changes mean to our people. Translate the project into the adoption challenge. We want to, secondly, support our people through the individual change journeys they're going to experience. And we're going to use the ProSci ADKAR model to make sense of that journey. And then third, we're going to apply a scalable, structured process to build strategies and plans to support adoption so that we can hit people-side milestones when we need to along the project life cycle. So we're going to start by defining impact so we can bring change into focus. And this is really around demystifying the change. Too often, this is how change impact gets described. We're implementing a new CRM system. Well, that's that organizational level change, but what does it mean to me as a salesperson? Well, we can start to add a little bit of clarity. It has a medium impact to your job. But what if we could actually define the impact to people of the projects we're working to implement? And we use 10 aspects of change impact to really add this level of definition. We take an impacted stakeholder group and say, what does this change mean to their processes, to their systems, to their tools, to their job roles? What about to their critical behaviors, their mindsets, attitudes, beliefs? What about their reporting structure, their performance reviews, their compensation, or their location? Each of these are aspects of somebody's job that your project might impact, and it might not. But if you're not asking the question, if you're not doing this kind of impact definition, you don't know the adoption challenges that people are going to face. This is about translating project challenges into adoption challenges by understanding what the change means to our people. And this is really how I think change management brings empathy to the project table, by having us understand the impacts to our people. So that's how we begin to de-chance adoption, by first defining what to adopt and use the solution means for various groups. I have a quote here from Jeff Hyatt, ProSize founder. "The secret to successful change lies beyond the visible and busy activities that surround change. Successful change at its core is rooted in something much simpler: how to facilitate change with one person." Now, Jeff Hyatt was a mechanical engineer running huge process optimization projects, but what he realized in the end was it was helping one person make a change successfully that he could scale to drive more successful organizational outcomes. And so Jeff gave us the ADKAR model. Here again, I have ADKAR on a page. If you do any kind of Google search, you'll find articles and blogs and videos about ADKAR. But ADKAR describes the 5 individual milestones of a successful change. Whether it's getting a child to pick up their room, maybe getting an older child to study more effectively, working with a neighbor to help clean up their yard, working with a community group, or adopting new functionality in the online collaboration tool we're using at work. Individual change has these 5 milestones or building blocks of success. Change begins with awareness of the need for change. And notice it doesn't say awareness that the change is happening. It says awareness of the need for change. It's an internalization of answers to why now, what if we don't? It's a question we begin asking when we are 2 years old, and it is the first question we need to answer for our employees when we are introducing a change to them. After awareness of the need for change comes desire to participate and support the change. It's where I've made the personal decision to step out of the current state and start to engage in this change, regardless of what flavor it might be. Now, desire is always a personal decision, but we can influence it if we start to understand the organizational motivators, the personal motivators, and really amplify the WIFM, the what's in it for me for this project or this initiative. After awareness and desire come knowledge. Now, knowledge is unfortunately our default. When we try to implement a change, what do? We send our people to training. And we all know what it feels like to be in a training program when we don't have awareness of why we should be there, and we don't have desire, we've not made the decision. We all sit in the back of the room wondering what we're going to make for dinner. Knowledge is necessary but not sufficient. It needs to come after awareness and desire, but it's where I have the knowledge of what I need to do to make the change, and what do I need to do after the change happens. After awareness, desire, knowledge comes ability to implement those skills and behaviors. This is the demonstrated capability that I can do my job in the new way, that I can show up the new way as needed by this project or this initiative. Now, there are often gaps between knowledge and ability. And if you go golfing with me, you'll see the gap between knowledge and ability. Because I know how to approach the ball. I know how I'm supposed to bend my knees. I know I'm supposed to keep my head down. I know I'm supposed to keep my head down, but I do not have the ability to keep my head down. As a project manager, when you're implementing a solution that people need to bring to life in their day-to-day work, understanding what ability means to them and what their knowledge ability gap might be is how you can prepare, equip, and support them to adopt the solution successfully. And then the final piece is R, reinforcement. It's our natural, psychological, physiological tendency to go back to what we've always done. And so to keep a change in place, we must reinforce intentional mechanisms to keep the change in place, to make sure that change sticks. Now, as I mentioned, ADKAR are individual milestones. So they are markers of individual successful progress through an individual change. Now, it's sequential but not linear. I can move forward and backwards, and we've certainly felt that before. But for changes to succeed, an individual needs to be able to say, I understand why this project's happening. I've decided to participate in this project. I know how my job will change as a result of this project. I am able to implement my job in the new way as required by this project, and I'll continue to do my job this new way as described by the project. So that's ADKAR in a nutshell. The powerful thing about ADKAR is it's how we can scale successful change. Because if a change is impacting one person, the change succeeds when that person has ADKAR. But if you're bringing a change to a team of 5 or a work group of 20, or maybe a department of 1,000 or an organization of 150,000, successful change happens when each person who has to adopt and use the solution has awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And ADKAR also helps us understand how different individuals move through change at different paces. We might start at different times, and we might move more quickly or more slowly through those different elements to arrive at those milestones, given our own personal history, our own personal wiring, our own personal commitment to the current state. But ADKAR gives us the framework to start to make sense of those individual change journeys that culminate in successful organizational change. Now, I mentioned ADKAR are individual milestones, and so we work with many of our projects that we support to map ADKAR milestones to the project life cycle. I give you a really simple snapshot here, but the kicker is ability in ADKAR needs to align with go live of the project. When I go live with a project, I need my people to have the ability to do their jobs differently as required by this project. Once I map ability to go live, I can start to back into the other milestones, knowledge and desire and awareness. I can look out forward and map the reinforcement milestone so that I can move my people through the milestones they need to be successful while the technical side of the change moves forward as well. Give you just a simple snapshot here because many of you, I'm sure, are using more iterative types of change where instead of a sequential approach with a singular go live, we're doing iterative cycles of development with multiple releases along the way. What we can do is map ability to each of those releases. But now we've added the human dimension, the people side of change, to the way that we're even approaching our timelining and our milestoning. Now, the way we help individuals through ADKAR at scale is by applying a structured, scalable, repeatable process for change management. And this is really what the discipline of change management is and what change management practitioners really learn how to do. What you see here is ProSci's 3-phase process. We're not going to go into a lot of detail because, again, there's all sorts of resources available for you. But phase 1 is to prepare approach. To prepare our approach, we define success, we define the change impact, and then we define our approach based on risks and resources and timelines and all those moving parts of the project that we want to align the people side to. In phase 2, we manage change, where we plan and act, track performance, and we adapt our actions. So you'll notice right in phase 2, we've designed iteration on purpose so that we are sensing if our people are making their change journeys in alignment with how we need from the technical side. And if it's not working, we can step in and help our people step forward. Phase 3 is sustain outcomes, where we review our performance, activate the sustainment mechanisms, and transfer ownership back into the business. So just like project management has process and tools to make it repeatable and scalable so we can get better at it and share it, change management has parallel processes and tools that we can align and bring to life on our projects. Which really brings us to our final piece here around how do we integrate change management and project management. If change management prepares the organization for the solution, project management prepares the solution for the organization. If they are two sides of the coin, the technical side and the people side, how do we bring them to life to work more effectively in an integrated manner? And we're going to look at 4 dimensions of integration. how we can integrate around results, around people, around processes, and around tools. Before we jump into those dimensions of integration, though, I want to let you know it matters. ProSci is at its core a research organization. Over the last 22 years, we've done 11 longitudinal studies on best practices in managing the people side of change to deliver results and outcomes. What you see here is some data showing a correlation between project success and whether or not we integrated the technical side and people side. Those that integrated project management and change management met or exceeded objectives 47% of the time. Those that did not integrate only met objectives 30% of the time. And we also see more effective change management when we bring the two disciplines together. So we're going to jump into the 4 dimensions, but it matters. It drives success when we bring the two disciplines together. There's really 4 dimensions of integration that we tend to look at. We can integrate around results, the why we do what we do, and 55% of our study participants align or integrate around results. We can integrate at the people level, the who does the work, and that's the most common form of integration. 89% of our study participants integrate at that people level. Third is process, integrating around how we do what we do, how we do it. 77% of our study participants integrate at that level. And finally, integration at the tool level, the what we use to do it. And 51% of our study participants integrate tools. So each of these are opportunities for you as a project manager to look for opportunities to bring together the technical side and the people side. Because this is a phrase I began using in 2007, complementary disciplines with a common objective. That change management and project management, they are complementary disciplines. They come together with unique perspectives and experiences, worldviews that help us drive change forward. But in the end, they have a common objective, which is helping the organization land this change to the most success we possibly can. And so when we talk about integration at the results level, it's really around recognizing that there is a singular reason for change. There is a singular definition of success. And the technical side and people side are 2 sides of that coin. When we coach change practitioners, we coach them to capture the project objectives, what the project's aiming to achieve, and the organizational benefits, what the organization gains if this project is successful. And we tell change management practitioners that's what you're here to deliver. But that's what the project community is here to deliver as well. This is around aligning on the fact that it is a singular coin with a technical side and a people side. If it's not someone's job, it's no one's job. That quote came out of our research, and it really gives us an insight around integration at the people level, the who does the work. And you see the first step here really is around clarity around roles and responsibilities. We have sponsors that provide direction and governance. They make decisions around time, scope, and cost. They take actions around being active and visible participants and building coalitions and communicating directly. But the sponsor is one of these critical roles in driving successful change. Certainly we have people managers, some of the most important allies in times of change. But we have the project manager and the change manager as additional roles, and they each have roles and responsibilities, not only to the technical and people sides of the change, but also in coming together to working as a partnership, to really communicate effectively, to collaborate, to form that foundation, to make sure that we have the technical side and people side working together because the people that are doing the work are working together. So it's really bringing together the team, forming that partnership that we are working together. And I share with you this notion related to people and results. We're on the same team. What you see here is a picture of my 13-year-old son. He runs through every boundary he has ever been shown. And he gives my partner and I a run for our money. And so we would find ourselves bickering after receiving a phone call from the school about what we were going to do with him. And we realized early on that at any point in time, either of us could say the statement, "We're on the same team." And we both had to take a step back and a big deep breath and realize, while we are bickering about how to respond to this call from the principal, we are both on Team Survive Carter. And I think project management and change management needs to have that acknowledgement, that realization as well. That we are on the same team, that these are two disciplines, but we are both on team deliver this change successfully to the organization. So people and results are our first two dimensions. Process is the third dimension where we can start to integrate. And you'll notice an integrated approach lets us bring the technical side and people side activities together from the beginning. We get to integrate our plans and align our timelines. We get to sequence our tasks to ensure that we are moving people forward at the same time we are moving the technical solution forward. We get to add those people side deliverables into our deliverables of the project plan. This integration of process gives us the best outcomes because, again, we're tending to both sides of the coin. Now, we can have change management come alongside project management early, but not fully integrate, and that's not going to yield the benefit we expect. And an unfortunate reality is many times change management gets brought to the table at the end when we are working to put out fires or respond to massive resistance. And that's not going to deliver us the value we expected either. Integration of process means from the beginning we are starting to weave together the tasks, the activities, the deliverables, the milestones. And those ADKAR milestones is one of those interesting ways we can start to align and integrate at the process level. Our final dimension of integration is really around tools. And again, you see some data here around the most commonly integrated tools. At the top, we have the communication plan, the project plan, and the training plan. After that, you see some of those other tools that you're used to using to manage the technical side of your change that you can start to use to bring the people side into those plans, into the tools that you're using. So the communication plan now has both technical components and aspects and answers to the questions that people have. Our training plan has not only training for the technical solution, but training on how to navigate change more effectively. Our schedule has technical milestones and people milestones declared. That's how we integrate at the tool level. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of questions to begin asking and answering yourself. We really laid the foundation that successful change is like a coin and there's two sides, a technical side and a people side. The discipline of project management has really supported the execution of the technical side of our changes, and the discipline of change management helps us to shore up, de-risk, and de-chance that people side of the change, people side of the coin. So here's the questions you can begin asking yourself. How might we align on this common objective of improving change success and change outcomes so we might better integrate at the results level? How might we create an effective partnership with clear roles and responsibilities so we might effectively integrate at the people level? How might we sequence our milestones, our tasks, our activities, our deliverables so that we can more effectively work together on that process dimension? And how might we be more efficient and more effective by combining the tools that we use on that tool dimension? Every organization is facing more change than it's ever faced. The velocity of change is going up, the demand to deliver results and outcomes, the expectation of successful change is going up, which only creates a greater platform for change management and project management to come together. And I just want to conclude by saying thank you. A special acknowledgement to Olivier Lazare and Christian Delos. They have helped ProSci step to the table and become a supporting member of this coalition of associations, where we can work to establish a better platform, not only for the integration of the disciplines of change management and project management in organizations and PMOs or on projects and initiatives, but also laying that platform for you all as change leaders to step into being the multilingual change leaders that we need in the future, building your own skill sets, your own expertise around the technical side and the people side of change. When we prepare, equip, and support our people through change, they are more successful, project delivers results, and the organization is in a better place. And this is the foundation that lets us integrate and deliver success. Thank you. In conclusion, I've left you a couple of resources you'll find as part of the downloads. You'll find some presentation highlights that successful change requires the technical and people sides I've also given you a number of questions that we lifted out of today's content that you can begin asking and answering on your real projects to start to highlight and elevate the people side of change. I've left you a couple of useful resources, links that you can use to dive into this notion of change management, but also some of the specific topics that we addressed in the presentation, including the unified value proposition, defining change impact, ADKAR, ProSci methodology, and an article and a webinar replay around integrating change management and project management. And if you'd like to connect with me, let's continue the conversation. You can find me on LinkedIn, and there should be a QR code you can use to add me as a connection as you continue to advance change success in your organization.